We've reached the times where nuclear, the concept of nuclear won't work anymore. Being in twos, being in threes, this doesn't work anymore. The challenges, the kind of challenges that we are facing today and we will face in very near future is not something that we can handle in twos, threes, or fours. And we know that humans have always been small group animals and we function well and we function as humans, being in small groups. So, what do you think? There are also a lot of communities today that are trying to create that space, where there is trust, where there are strong bonds, where they can trust each other, and when there are challenges, they're also educating each other to face them a certain way. But there is something definitely missing if we are seeing how we have to progress towards this in our future times. We see that that's just not enough. So, what do you think is that 360 degree, the 360 that gives a 360-degree aspects to a small group? What are the essential aspects that we need to focus on?
See, little backtrack, a view to everyone about where we started from, where we come from. So, being nuclear is not our evolutionary adaptation. It's something required by the corporate culture, the consumerism, the capitalist society. It benefits a lot by dividing families so that they can rule over our lives. Historically, at least till the world was, almost everywhere you see that families used to be joint families. Everybody used to have a hand, even if it was a farming, even whatever be their trade of occupation. Everybody, right from children to adults to elderly people, they would pass on their wisdom, and it was a collective effort when whatever they undertake. But that got broken down actively and passively, both ways. And that is how we could sell products. Like if you despise your brother having a Honda, you would have another Honda or get a BMW. So there's a basic kind of superiority that you want to establish. But when you are in a collective, there's much lesser need for consumption. You will need less. You will need lesser number of homes. You will need lesser number of vehicles. You won't need so many gas connections. Maybe almost everything that we consume gets multiplied if people start living individually. They're singled out, and each person has to live in a separate place. Then all the commodities, all the utilities will have to be again replicated there. So it's great for the consumer culture. It's great for capitalism because they can sell more. But what has this in end led us to? We are over exploiting the earth. We're not utilizing it. We're simply exploiting all the resources because they are there, and nobody has put a price tag on all the free resources that earth provides. And it's not able to regenerate. We are already using more than 1.7 times the regenerative capacity of Earth as a whole, and that's one species using it up all. What do we leave for all the other species on the planet? So that's our track as of now. And recently, we have shifted towards being nuclear. You know, the way situations are. Even those who are married, husband and wife, live in faraway places. Children are sent out to live in other places for education. All this creates multiples of consumerism and bad impact on the. That's one thing. Another dimension that you should understand is the psychological impact on all the people there. They're not progressive. They're not. First people need to establish a strong need, understand that there's a strong need for a collective. There are so many societies, as examples from the past, where we were just we because we were in a collective, we could survive and thrive. Of course, even child rearing, like there's an old saying, you might have heard of it. It takes a village to raise a child. So it's a collective effort. We could many of most of the children today, we have healthcare that won't that is trying to make up for it. But how far will it go through collapse? How far will that system even sustain? How much more caring would an aunt or an uncle be in comparison with a doctor or a nurse? How much more caring would a grandmother be? How much more cautious would family members be? Because it's their bloodline. So you have to understand this as having strong bonds as being a fundamental necessity, and solitude is creating great number of problems. Late marriage, by the way, it's mandated by law. What's the age at which you should marry, or marriage is seen as a time at which you should become active in the reproductive cycle of the universe. So, at what age should you actually become active? Is the age at which nature decides for you. It's not what government decides. So, the age that government has decided, influenced by corporations, is much, much later than the age that nature is deciding for you. And this leads to overconsumption, overutilization in many ways, and loneliness, so many kind of relationship issues as well. So there are this alone is a completely new topic, and it can be debated for a long time.
You spoke about resources and some numbers there. This is like very strange that we don't see these numbers being put up either in social media or anywhere. Even I personally feel that this should be part of our education system. And the children or children needs to be educated of about what kind of resources are there out there, how we are utilizing it, and how much is left. And so, do you want to talk? I just want to understand, like, on the numbers, like, what are the kind of resources that we are using today, and how much of that is really left?
Uh, More importantly, when you say, I'll come to numbers, but before that, we should know that our education system is constantly moving in a direction where the awareness of the current scenario, though they try to make a statement in certain places, they are constantly removing awareness. They do not want people to, they do not want kids to be concerned about their future. But the future that we are creating for them is pretty concerning. So you don't see that kind of awareness. In fact, the system is moving in the opposite direction. They remove all kinds of awareness possible in kids. That's what the education system is doing. But that will not go so far. There are many kids who do their own research, find it online. There are so many statistics that are not actively pushed to education. And education goes only so far in covering physics, chemistry, biology. But it's, say, how these things have been impacted in our daily life. For example, all of us go through our basic education. You would have heard of nitrogen manufacture, the Haber's process. But did you know that we are producing more nitrogen than all of the bacteria on Earth are fixing in the soil? That's how much more nitrogen fertilizer we are producing. And we are trying to we are adding it to soil so that we get better produce. So the amount of, we have chapters on fishes, but is there any chapter which mentions that the amount of plastic is more than the total weight of fishes? That's comparison by weight. The weight of plastic is more than the weight of fishes in the world oceans. So you don't see that. Of course, there's slight mentions about pollution, but then when each of these topics are being taught, there could also be an active view at uh, telling the latest research. It could also be an initiative that the teacher takes and the institutions promote. That will give a better insight into what state we are in today. Even agriculture, the topsoil loss is at a particular rate. For example, even normal agriculture is not sustainable, let alone industrial farming. Even small scale farming is very dangerous to to nature. This is how I would put it. 1 year, if a farmer plows his field and then plants his crop, and the next year he's again plowing it. This is, say, we call it one crop cycle. In one crop cycle, the amount of topsoil, the nutritious soil within which plants can grow, that's limited. And below that, you have hard soil where plants do not grow. You cannot have crops there. So, per crop cycle, the amount of topsoil lost would take at least 400 to 500 years to get replenished. So when you do one farming cycle, you are taking away 400 years worth of natural input to that soil. That's how much time it would have taken for topsoil or that is lost to settle down there. We are already, like in 2016, a research was published, we are down to less than 30 years worth of topsoil being left. But again, it depends on how many crop cycles you have, what area you are in, the kind of flooding that climate, the shifting climate patterns induce. And we will not have any topsoil left by the middle of the century. Anywhere on earth to grow crops. That's another 25 years. That's the max. By then, no farming is possible just because of topsoil loss. So, what are your plans? How do you plan to survive a system where there is no farming? So, the numbers go on and on and on like that. Because of depleting freshwater resources, there are regional conflicts possible. India, Pakistan might well go into a war over the Indus River Treaty. There are multiple countries in Africa which are on the verge of war, which are on the verge of starvation. There's famine. There are millions of problems compounded. You just have to Google and or search on YouTube or search anywhere online. You will find tons of resources when published in peer-reviewed journals.
So yeah, I think where you mentioned how this is not being pushed into our education system. A couple of days back, I did get a chance to interact with some students, go through their syllabus and what sort of content is it is out there today. And I could see the actual problems being put, like use cases. Like there are some initiatives taken by stem cells in a lot of schools. There are problems being put, but I think the problem is where we are pacifying the seriousness of it. So it's almost like we're trying to put it in a way that we have a solution for it, or you can have a solution for it. So it's just pacifying that seriousness is something that I have witnessed. And it's almost like, yeah, government is going to definitely take care of it. But I don't think that's the case.
The system does a great job in dumbing down the child. Like if the kid did not know anything about a particular topic, like if I am talking about an orange and the kid knew nothing about the orange, he would be surprised. With the eyes wide open, he would see, okay, and then he could listen to all that I say about an orange. It's similar, even when I talk about climate change or sea level rise or topsoil loss. But if I have already mentioned sea level rise as a problem and walking away from the beach as the solution, the kid already thinks he knows the problem and the solution. The moment I start talking about sea level rise, he is not interested at all. Like he does not have that curiosity because that curiosity has already been sucked. Everybody knows the abbreviations, the titles, and the definitions. But what impact it would have and actually getting into depths about understanding the details, it's something playing at the base psychology of a human being. their curiosity is taken away. They think they know it. I've seen many school kids, no matter what term I say, they said they know it. And when I ask what they know about it, the most wouldn't even know the definition, and others would know the definition of it. Nothing more than that. So that, uh, yes, of course, the breadth of the conversation is important, but the depth of the conversation and giving kids the humility to realize that they do not know is more important. Like they do not know enough. It's just introduction that they have been given to, and there's a lot more to uncover. That should be the active talk, the active mindset. Only then will they be open to understanding more about it. Or it's like headlines. You must, you even if a similar topic comes up, the media tries to make it as dramatic as possible, the title itself, so that anybody who looks at the title is pulled into the conversation, tries to listen a little more. That's what gives them revenue. So the cinematic effect is amplified, but the actual thought, the actual content, and being able to visualize the numbers when I say the weight of fish is more than the weight of, less than the weight of plastic in our oceans today. Being able to visualize that, putting numbers in perspective. For example, a kid is 15 years old, he sees his dad 40 years old. By the time he looks like his dad, there's nothing else to eat. So is he having that visualization? Because that farming has completely failed by then. So this is a direction in which we need to push people, but getting society to adapt when there's no monetary incentive is very, very hard. Just like fasting could be the best solution for most health problems, but it is never promoted as a solution, but you are promoted to eat 3 times a day because that's where money is. There's no money in fasting. So we cannot bring along a monetary incentive for everything. And that's why whatever we cannot bring a monetary incentive along with, more like the family values, more like relationship values, which will reduce the need for monetary spending and actually work in the opposite direction of people getting monetary incentives are being pushed down. And that's why that's one of the core reasons. Not that humans have somehow changed biologically, that they do not blend with many people, but then they are socially pushed into that state.
Yeah, and I think it's not just educating children about it, right? It's also, I mean, when you take the majority of the people out there, it's not something that you often, these are not the discussions that you often hear about. Or, even if you hear those discussions, like you mentioned, it's the depth of it is not very well known. So, and this is just from a personal experience. I was raised by a single parent, and there were a couple of problems that we had to go through. And in the end, what I realized is there were some conflicts within the family, and we were just fighting with each other. And I could completely relate it to the rat experiment, right? You take one rat, you put it in a cage, you give it torture, and it always tries to break through. It tries to come out of the cage. But you put 2 rats in that same cage and give it torture. It tries to fight among each other. As you increase it, it again tries to fight with each other until the 2 rats kill each other. So just realizing the fact that a lot of conflicts or challenges that we are facing today is just that cage, or is that system, the complexity that we have created, and seeing the root cause of a lot of challenges that we are seeing it, and actually having that awareness and trying to get out of it is something that takes a lot of awareness, a lot of knowledge, a lot of work. But moving this, so if one individual is realizing this and taking a certain path, it's not very helpful, right? Because the challenges that we are seeing today is not something that can be solved by one individual. So we need a community as a whole to fight this, or to be resilient and understand what's happening. So it's really not that easy to get people on your boat. Um,
Yeah.
so, what are your thoughts on that?
When you think of building communities, you should, I think, hover your numbers around some Dunbar number, like maybe 5 or 7 to 9 or 15 or 50 or 150. These are the levels at which teams or communities must be built. So maybe you should be paired up with 7 to 9 people who, with each of whom you should resemble a particular pivotal value, a central theme, a central idea. That's how another community of 9 could be built, and these two could be interacting. But centrally, you are focused at some Dunbar number like 7 to 9 or 15 or 50 or 150. And whenever you need to connect with such people, you have to build unparalleled trust. How does this unparalleled trust? Trust depends upon fundamentally three factors. One, uh, the fundamental idea behind even creating trust when you have to align with a person is observing their core values and seeing what resembles your core values as well. There should be some core values of that person, what the other person looks for, which should be one of your core values as well. Or that person should be open to accepting your core value, or there should be some similarity or some uh, plane, some understanding, some shared consciousness about where you two should go together. That's how you can connect with a person. And that would be a sustainable connection. No matter how many ups and downs come later on, still because of that shared understanding of one particular core value for which you are fighting together, you will always have a cause to unite. And that's very, very important. Apart from that, building trust takes many dimensions. One is understanding that in getting this core value of yours, that's a collective value of yours, say, established and moving in that direction successfully, each of you should feel the competence that you have, your ability to rally behind that core value and work in that direction. Then that uh, could be just your core values could just be survival through the hardest of times. Just have this much. And to survive in the hardest of times, both of you are getting competent. Both of you are working in that direction. Then you see each other's competence in that direction around that core value, and you will value each other much more. That's one thing. The second thing, when I say survival, your interest in the other person's survival should also be conveyed, and their interest in yours should also be conveyed. It should need not be with one person, but it could be a team of 8 people, and all the people should be interested in the survival of everyone there. And collectively, you amplify the effect so much more, and it becomes extremely beautiful when everybody wants everybody to survive. Like, it's not one person's thoughts that are saving any one person, but the collective's thoughts that are saving each one of them. They get exponentially amplified. So the benevolence should always be conveyed, and the benevolence is what will keep you together and what will create an emotional trust. Of course, you are competent. How much caringness do you have? And the next thing is reliability. So if you are available on one particular day, at one particular time when there's a crisis situation, and not available, or even if you are aside and not caring for the other person or not springing up into action when required, you will be perceived as less reliable. It's the same with every member within this community or within this group. So broadcasting that you are reliable, and moreover, that reliability is also a fundamental dimension that springs out of your ability to handle yourself in any situation, your control over yourself, or more like your self awareness, your presence of mind, and your awareness. That is also broadcasted. So when you put these three values in combination with the core guiding principle of yours, then you can definitely sustain and have a really strong team that will survive the odds of the future.